to our next speaker, who will be Dr. Robert Bewley, an expert in cultural heritage management, the director of the Endangered Archaeology in the Middle East and North Africa project based at Oxford University and funded by the Arcadia Fund. And Dr. Bewley will actually speak about this very project. If you just, this green one, we'll move it all forward.
Thank you very much, Eckhart. And sometimes I title this Endangered Archaeology in the Middle East and North Africa, Mission Impossible. It's certainly Mission Impossible in 7 minutes, so here goes. I will try and get to 7 minutes. I just want to say that the culture in crisis is nothing new. My view has often been from above. This is taken from a balloon, and it doesn't matter whether you're recording the archaeology from a balloon, a kite, a drone, an aeroplane, or a satellite. It's still recording information for the future. Here's Stonehenge under crisis in 1906. We hope it's a little better now. We don't want to say that the Middle East and North Africa has a monopoly on endangered archaeology. We've been destroying our archaeology in Britain and Europe very well, thank you very much, for many, many years. Luckily, most of it becomes buried, as you can see here, just in this bit here, and it's crop marks. In the Middle East and North Africa, the destruction is often more total than just from ploughing. And that's another message of today, which is that there are many agents of destruction. It's not just looting and trafficking or in conflict. Probably the largest threat to archaeology is through agriculture, and our speaker from Iraq, translated by Eckhart, mentioned agricultural expansion, but also urban development, road building, and everything else. However, it's not all doom and gloom. It is also a voyage of discovery. We're discovering new sites all the time. I haven't time to go into this, but if you want to know more about it, speak to me over lunch. As I've said here, a voyage of discovery and documenting damage and destruction. We're covering 20 countries from Mauritania to Iran. The project is only just over a year old, funded, as Eckhart said, by the Arcadia Foundation, and we hope that we will continue. At the moment, we have definite money until the end of this year, but we're hoping for more money in future years. And the purpose of the project is to make a record. And in a way, we've heard the words of collaboration and coordination, but the records we're creating using this particular software, Arches, which you'll hear more about later, I believe, is so that the information is available to those who need it. It's not for those of us working in Oxford and Leicester, it's for the people of all those countries. It's their heritage and their information that we're helping to create so that more people can see it. It's not that archaeologists want to preserve everything, but it's so that we know what's being destroyed, and therefore we can understand the better by having recorded it. And that's a key message for it. The next couple of slides are really just a demonstration of what the database looks like and which will be available internationally anywhere on the internet in the next few months. And here's just a number of the different records. There are over 56 different fields for each record, which describe the site and also then monitor and assess the threats to that site. So it's something that will be interactive and continually updated as time goes on. That's just a snapshot of where we are at the moment. And the purpose of the database is so that we, as archaeologists, can research it, but also anybody can actually enter search criteria and ask questions. So if you wanted to know, for example, the distribution of all the Roman sites that we've recorded to date, you would be able to get that information, but not until lunchtime. And I just want to very quickly go through a couple of areas that we've worked on. Jordan was the basis for many of the sites that we did. We've been flying in Jordan for 20 years. And this is just one example of a site. You can see the Roman reservoir. You can see there's an archaeological site next to it. We flew over it the next year. You can see the Roman reservoir, but you can't see the archaeological site. Bulldozed away for someone who we believe was growing more olive trees with a grant from the European Union. Other examples here, Jerash in Jordan. You can see the Roman city there, I hope. The red center is just to locate it. You can see the city walls. But if you look at a satellite image, you can see how much development has gone on around the Roman city of Jerash in an area where there were the Hellenistic and Roman burials. But on a positive note, we're working with the Jordanian authorities, and one of our first questions to them was, where's your next infrastructure project? And they said, we're building a ring road around Madaba, and the purple line is where the ring road around Madaba will go. We created a buffer zone, recorded 141 sites, and 11 of the sites are directly affected by the road, the exact line of the ring road. Therefore, the Department of Antiquities in Jordan can now decide what it does with that information. And I've met the inspector who's going to go out and have a look at those sites to see whether they need to do more field work, excavation, or even move the line of the road. And that's kind of the model that we've had in Britain for quite a while, and it seems to work. So we hope this will be one measure of success. I can't talk too much about Saudi Arabia, but we've recorded over 30,000 sites in Saudi Arabia. Many of the sites in Saudi Arabia, because the population is so low, are in really, really good condition. So another purpose of the project is to identify areas where we know the preservation is very good, and we would hope that in the future, development and building wouldn't happen. Here's just a few examples. There was one there of a prehistoric kite site. Here we describe these as pendant and keyhole structures. And archaeologists are brilliant at describing things when they don't know what they are. So if anybody knows what these sites are, do come and tell me later. Yemen has already been mentioned, and we're hoping to have a meeting with the Yemeni authorities and also with UNESCO, and I think the meeting is now being scheduled in June in Jordan, so that we can create a historic environment record for Yemen. And these four images just show the development of the citadel, top left, and then moving to top right, and then bottom left, and then as a result of the conflict, you will see here 5 bombs hit it and completely destroyed the citadel. In Libya, just an example here of the removal of a whole medieval city. This was one of Gaddafi's projects, but unfortunately once he'd lost power, the idea that they would then develop the town again has not happened. So almost a bit like the example from Jordan, an area that was completely destroyed for no real purpose at all. And then an example in Morocco, although we're a team in Oxford, we also have an outstation in Leicester. They've been doing some field work in the Dra Valley, a very important site here called Zagara, and they were removing the stones from the top to build a sign that said God, King and Country, and they were asked to stop doing that, and they agreed not to do it, and the local population said, no, we don't want the archaeological site destroyed. So they've now agreed an area, the orange area is somewhere where they won't do the stone robbing. They will go in other areas, but they determined that the archaeology was too important in that orange area. You saw this slide earlier, Tel Ubaid in Iraq, and it also makes the point that archaeology is quite resilient. There's a lot of destruction going on there, but it's not total destruction. Those are the tank traps for Saddam Hussein's tanks in the possible event of an Iranian invasion on a very, very important archaeological site. It's not been totally destroyed, but it has been messed about a bit, as you can see. And I just wanted to mention Hatra. I hadn't time to show the before picture. This is a picture taken in April 2015. And the purpose of showing this image, a recent and high-resolution satellite image, is that although you read in the press there's been a huge amount of destruction at Hatra, in fact, you read it's been razed to the ground. In fact, it hasn't been razed to the ground. It's actually still in quite good condition. Awful lot of damage on the main central area, but around it, and remember, this is a city that survived 2 Roman invasions and sieges, so it is fairly resilient. So I think we can take some hope. You may see this again. This is Jura Europus. This is perhaps, apart from Palmyra and others, this is perhaps the bleeding heart of the Middle East, a wonderful archaeological site up on the Euphrates. This is what it looked like in December, from a satellite image, December 2011, and we commissioned some satellite photography, and they said we won't be able to do it till 2016, but luckily on Christmas Day, 2015, nobody else wanted the satellite that day. Everybody was too busy celebrating their Christmas, and this is a detailed image of the destruction that's gone on there, and that's looting on an industrial scale. There isn't time to go into it, but each of those pits goes all the way around down to bedrock, and they've been properly excavated by looters. By that I mean they've archaeologically excavated them. They've not wrecked the archaeology that they were digging out, but there's no record of it, and we don't actually know, or I don't know, where the artifacts are. So as I've said, many agents of damage and destruction, and often post-conflict destruction can be greater than the original damage. That's an important message. So when we go in to repair places, we've got to be careful we don't do more damage. And a lot of people are very worried about that in a lot of places. I've put in the word interpretation there because the project we're involved in interprets archaeological sites, but it's one person working in a team. It doesn't mean to say it's the truth. And therefore we have to remember that everything we do is an interpretation. What more can we do? I think we have to prepare for a future that hopefully will be more peaceful. And by that I mean making the information available so that people have more information on which they can then decide what to do. It's not saying everything must be preserved, but it is doing it in an informed way. And there we are, records and assessments of threat to help protection, but we can't save everything. Training, I think, is hugely important, and that's training not only in our own countries. I happen to be an aerial archaeological specialist, and in Britain there are perhaps 3,000 professional archaeologists. There are probably only 20 or 30 aerial archaeologists. So we're a rare breed. So it's training not only in the West, but also training in the kinds of information we're getting for all the archaeologists in the Middle East and North Africa. And we've started that already. We had a training course last month, training 4 people from Libya who think that the approach we've taken is the right one. Monitoring is really important because this is just looking at an air photograph or a satellite image on one day is not good enough. You've got to keep monitoring to see how things change. If you remember back to the beginning of that photograph of Stonehenge and you looked at Stonehenge now, you would see how different it is in 110 years. We need to know more about looting and trafficking. We need to understand why people do it. There's already been some indication there that it is when the state breaks down. It is a source of income for ISIS and for other people. But then also, how does the trafficking work? Where are all those artifacts from Jura Europos? There are many people in the audience who know more about it than I do, but it is very, very important. And the other thing I must say is that we are getting on board. Neil Brody is going to join our project sometime later in 2016 to help us with that part of the project. I'm just putting this up just as a thing that we will talk about, I'm sure, which is to do with reconstruction, 3D recording, the Institute of Digital Archaeology. I haven't time to go into that now, but the reconstruction of the Monumental Arch and SciArc, and I see that Elizabeth is here from SciArc, so she can tell you all about that. And for the 3 hours, repair, restoration, and reconstruction, we could spend all day discussing that. And I just want to end with 2 slides. The local community is key. This is Bert de Vries at El Jamal in Jordan. He's been digging there 46 years. Archaeology is not done over 3 days. It takes a very, very long time. But you need the local community wherever there is one. Haven't time to go into that, talk about that another time. And there is some hope. If you look at Ypres in 1918, that's what it looked like not many years later. It is possible to rebuild and reconstruct. And that's it. Thank you.